Welcome, everybody, to Out Comes the Sun Radio. You are listening to Melissa Yamaguchi, my amazing co-host, and myself, Mariel Hemingway. And, I'm feeling kind of amazing today. I'm sitting in Idaho. I'm back here for the summer. And you know how much I love my Idaho. I'm so happy here in the summer. There's something about it. The animals walked in the house and they all just they settled in, and I've got the door open so the cats can go in and out during the day. It's very special. There's something special. I mean, summer to me is always, it's always been my happy place. Like, that's where I found, when I wrote my book, I wrote about summer being it was my most favorite time. And I remember when it was my grandfather Ernest Hemingway's birthday, because my step grandmother Mary Hemingway used to have a birthday party for him every summer on July 21st. And I would always get scared on the night of the birthday because it meant there was only one more month of summer. I just thought you all should know that. So, on July 21st, I'll probably be a little bit depressed on his birthday for very weird reasons. It's just that summer is ending. I love summer. I love connecting in the earth. I love it. I love the sun. I love the light, the amount of light you get during the day. The fact that you wake up so early and it's, the sun comes up early, and here the sun isn't going down. Literally, sunset is 9:22, and the last light is almost 10 o'clock.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Like being in Europe. It's like being in Europe in the summertime when at 10 o'clock the sun's still out at night. You're walking around thinking, what's going on? It's interesting that you talk about a couple of things that you've mentioned that I want to bring up. First of all, you said the location during a certain time of the year makes you feel really happy. And that's a very real thing in feng shui and energy. Yes. We know that there are certain locations around the world that calibrate to you, to this vibrational thread that you have coursing through your body. There are seasons that help your body calibrate. People say, oh, is it around the time of my birthday? No, not necessarily. For example, my daughter's place is Barcelona, Spain. She goes over there and feels like she's on full tilt. She is ready to go. She feels like she can accomplish anything. And I think that it's interesting because I know how you feel as your friend. I know how you feel when you're back in California. And then I know how you feel when you're in Idaho. And it's as though there's some recalibrating that takes place for you in both of those locations at different seasons. In the winter, you prefer California. In the summer, you like Idaho, right? So absolutely. That's a real thing. A lot of parents have anxiety over the summer because they feel like, oh God, the kids are home and I have to work. I've got to find camps. I've got to find YMCA. I've got to find babysitters, right? Or conversely, there's the family that's like, oh, the kids are out for summer. Let's go. We're going to go swimming together. Right. So it's that, whatever that energy is around that time, the children absorb to a degree.
Right? It's so true. But you're so right, because when I'm in California in the winter, I fleed the snow and the cold, and it was really the end of winter, but winter went on for another 2.5 months. Literally, they were telling me when I rolled into town a week ago today, they were saying it was only a week ago that the weather became nice. It was really just a very, very long, cold winter and spring. It was just that way. And I usually love spring. I was kind of irritated that I couldn't get up here sooner, but I came at the perfect time. As the universe is, it's always perfect, right? It always does. You're always taken care of if you allow yourself to go with that natural course of things, right? And things change. So I did get here. It's perfect. It's warm. It's hot. It's summer. It's dry. The wind is blowing. It's magical, but it's true. That leads me to, there's something I sent you, I think on Instagram, about kids and how important, like, I don't know why it came to my mind as you were talking about the kids, how important it is for kids to not have a nightlight in their room.
Right.
Which I found that really interesting. It
Yeah.
was on a Huberman podcast that actually having too much light in a child's room is problematic for their sleep system, for their circadian rhythm. And it makes so
Yep.
much sense. I mean, I know now that Bobby has introduced me to a black room 15 years ago. I mean, I'm incredibly crazy about making my room blacked out.
Yep.
And here, when it's 9:22, the sun is setting, it's still light out. So I have quite a job to do if I want to go to bed, which is considered my bedtime, like 9:30. So I have a lot of blacking out to do. But that the idea that, gosh, light is just so incredibly important to balancing our systems. It's powerful stuff, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's times when all of us as family will just go out in the sun, like just take our shoes off, go in the backyard.
Yeah.
Even if you're just putzing around, picking the flowers, checking on the fruit trees, whatever, it's just being out in the sun.
Yeah.
And how good that is for the body. But you said something a while ago. You said kind of going with the flow and embracing things as they are and learning how to not, we are in such a control mode in our world that learning how to not have that control and to be excited and open for the next, even though we don't have control, is kind of what our esteemed guest is going to be highlighting today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a great guest, John Sanei. He's been on the show for a couple times, and we love talking to him. And I'm speaking for you, but I know that I know this is true. We love it because it gets your brain working in a way that has, like, it's almost like awakening to parts of your brain that weren't turned on yet.
That's right.
And that's okay. And it's kind of, we have a conversation that's about, I guess in some ways accepting what is and accepting what might be.
Yes.
Which is an interesting, that's a jump into, that can be a jump into a fear place for a lot of people.
That's a leap of faith.
Especially from our generation.
Yeah, it's a leap of faith. It's a leap. We were raised, just think about our generation, how there's all these different generations that have gone through all these things. And our generation was taught by our parents and grandparents who went through the Great Depression, parents who came through the wars, the different wars, the Pearl Harbor and everything, right? So there's this rationing, this whole rationing mentality of being, not being wasteful and being purposeful in everything you do. So then you come to our generation, which was kind of this headiness and excess, and trying to find that balance between frugal and gimme greed, more in the 80s, to where we've learned how to be in control in order to be quote unquote happy.
Right.
When we get someone,
and it was also we grew up in the beginning of that me generation. It's like, I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to be, I'm a woman in a man's world, but that's not going to stop me.
I am woman. Hear me roar. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. But it's true. We came from, and I have a funny story. My mother, coming from, World War II, and she was definitely a depression baby. My mother kept things in the fridge that no living being of any kind, animal, mineral, vegetable, have any relationship to. Because you'd open the fridge and there'd be like 7 years of mold on something. And I go, Mom, can't we throw this out? She go, what? No, I'll eat it. Just leave it there. It's just crazy. Anyway, that's my but she came from that frugal and she set the mindset, and we're going to talk about mindset with our guest. She set the mindset for me worrying about money in a way that was like, it's going to be taken away. It's not going to be there. Don't rely on it. Don't rely on anybody. Money is, and that money is bad. I think that's an
money is evil.
Oh man.
Yep.
the root of all evil, all of that stuff. It's rough, it's rough to kind of, it's rough, but it's also not rough. Because once you realize it, you go, oh, well, that's where that comes from. Because that's all you really have to do is go, I don't need to think that thought.
Yeah, I don't have to think that way. It doesn't mean I don't love my parents. It doesn't mean I don't love somebody else. That doesn't work for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people don't like cilantro.
Exactly. Well, everybody, stay where you are, because you're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio with Melissa Yamaguchi and myself, Mariel Hemingway. And we're going to come back with an extraordinary guest, John Sanei. So stay where you are. Stay tuned. As a mental health advocate and author, I love books. Books have the capacity to inspire, educate, transform, and ultimately help readers all over the world. So if you want to publish your book, or if you need help writing your story, I highly recommend Mindstir Media, rated the #1 best book publisher around the country. Mindstir Media can help you no matter where you are in the book writing or publishing process. Go to mindstirmedia.com to learn more and schedule a consultation.
Welcome to Out Comes the Sun with Mariel Hemingway and Melissa Yamaguchi, me. Today, we're very excited. We have an incredible guest. Mr. Sanei has been on our show before, but let me give you a little insight for those of you that are stepping in for the first time. John is a highly acclaimed future strategist, best-selling author, keynote speaker, global keynote speaker at that, Singularity University and Duke Corporate Education faculty member, that's a mouthful, associate partner at the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, I love that, a transformation specialist, and a bold change maker. Well, we like bold change makers. John, thank you so much for being with us today.
Always an absolute pleasure. Wonderful to see you ladies again.
Great to see you.
You've shared with our audience and with Mariel and me, I walk away so enlightened, and when we've been off on our show with you, Mariel and I get on the phone and chatter like I'm sure it sounds like two chipmunks from afar, because we're both so excited about everything that we're learning. And your topics have been very varied, but one of the things that you are known for is helping businesses leverage AI to understand it, and it's the workplace, and that's where a lot of people are struggling, AI or not. So when you're working with people in the workplace, what's your #1 tackle?
Wow, that's a really great question. I've never been asked that question. I think the thing is we have to realize is that for the last 200 years, we've been trained and programmed for a very specific skill. And it's been one of analytics, logical thinking, outcome-based processes. Yeah. And it's always about the end result. It's never really about the process, really at all in any way. And if you think about it, at school, it wasn't about learning, it was about passing. And at university, it wasn't about it was about, did you get the degree? It's like, it's not what did you learn, it's did you get the degree? And when you get to work, you are so under pressure to perform that it's never really about the skill, it's about the numbers. And so what we've done as a society, unfortunately, is we've demised and sort of made second standard or second tier any sort of moral courage. And what we want to do is have moral courage at work, but because of the system that doesn't allow for moral courage, it only wants an end result that is as profitable as possible at all costs. And so what has happened is that the workplace is changing because of technology, and because as human beings, we're becoming more conscious and realizing that a life that's lived without purpose is an absolute waste of time, no matter how many Rolls Royces and Mercedes Benzes you have. It's an irrelevant task. Yeah. And in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, we somehow were duped into the idea that the third Rolex and the 15th Louis Vuitton bag and the 18th business class trip is what's really making us happy. And I think for a certain level and a certain level of consciousness, we were maybe to the max of happiness that we could have. But I think consciousness is changing. AI is arriving, technology is converging, and we are starting to realize that the education we've had is not relevant in a world that requires creativity, adaptability, and lateral thinking. So ultimately, what we've got to realize is that everything that's gotten us to this place at work is exactly the opposite of what's going to take us to the next place. And I think that's a good place to always start to explain that there's a fundamental shift that's required from us as human beings to access different types of creativity. And the old ways of creativity just aren't going to cut it.
Right. When you talk about moral courage, can you explain what moral courage is to like?
Sure.
I sort of think
Sure.
I know, but I'd love
Okay.
to hear your explanation of it.
Wonderful. So maybe I should have explained it better, but absolutely
No.
happy to. We find ourselves as humanity in a pretty hopeless space. And the truth is that hope, the idea of hope was always predicated on a certain outcome.
Yeah,
and
right.
we have a very, very uncertain future ahead of us. And so we're trying to apply the same type of hope into an uncertain future, and people are hopeless because we don't have that type of hope. But what gets us to create a new type of hope? What creates us a different type of energy that is focused on the systematic process rather than outcome? This is a very different, growth mindset, which is all about applying dopamine to the system, not the outcome. That's what growth mindset says. It says, if you're constantly learning and you're enthused by learning, you've got growth mindset. If you're waiting for an outcome, you don't have growth mindset. You have fixed mindset. Okay. So we've heard about these terms, but we've also realized it's also called the dopamine reward prediction error that we've created. We've only allowed ourselves dopamine when we are finished with a task. But now there's so much uncertainty. It's so tough out there that if you're only waiting for an outcome to celebrate your dopamine or access that innovative, energetic molecule inside your brain, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because there is no certainty. So we have to rejig hope in very different ways. So what does it take to rejig hope? It requires a new type of courage. And this new type of courage has got 5 different types of courage within it. And when I break them down for you, you realize that how uncourageous we all actually are. And we all think we're courageous, but truly, many of us are not courageous at all in any way. So let's start. There's 5. The first one is intellectual courage. And the intellectual courage aspect is, are you courageous enough to think new thoughts? And the truth is, you're not, and neither am I, and most people aren't. You have to have a really adaptable mind, a flexible mind, an unlearning mind, a growth mindset that says that I'm constantly looking to have new thoughts. Now, the stats say that by the time we're 35 years old, we have between 60 and 70,000 thoughts a day, of which 90% are the same thoughts as yesterday, which means that our brains are not courageous, which means that we are not evolving our awareness to figure out what's next. So firstly, intellectual courage, lukewarm. 2, spiritual courage. Are you courageous enough to be living a life based on your purpose, your genius, your fascination, and your excitement? Or have you gotten yourself stuck into a system that has always told you the better you follow the system, the more you'll be rewarded? Don't worry about your passion. Don't worry about your fascination. Don't worry about your genius. It's irrelevant to become a better and better accountant. So we really don't, as a society, have any spiritual courage either, because it was never celebrated. Okay. So there's a huge problem in the world today that's everybody's like, I need to find my purpose. I need to find my purpose. Look, there's this panic in the air. But because our whole lives, we just haven't been told or shown how to, or never been celebrated. So that's a second courage. The third courage is emotional courage. Are you willing to sit with uncomfortable emotions? And again, most people will avoid every negative emotion they can because it's somehow not cool to be sad or jealous or angry, even though those are very, very human emotions. But somehow we're like, no, you can't be feeling those. And we all know that when we don't process emotions, they become diseases. Yeah. And if not just diseases of the body, but diseases of the mind. And so sadness not processed is anger, and that's so very clear. Yeah. Comparison shows up as jealousy. And so you continuously have a low self-esteem and you haven't processed that. So now you're jealous all the time, or you're envious, or there's so many repercussions of not being emotionally courageous. And then 4, morally courageous. When you're in survival mode and you're in a high beta brainwave and you're focused on an outcome over everything else, you have 0 morals, not because you're a bad person, but because your brain is wired for outcome. Morals. I don't have time for morals. I'm being celebrated for outcome, not morals. And you can see this because EY, one of the 4 big consulting groups, got caught cheating on their ethics exams by the EU and got fined 100 million euros
Wow.
recently, just a few months ago. And so you ask yourself, EY aren't bad people. I know people that work for EY. They're very nice, just like all of us are. But what happened is that work.
They look at the outcome.
Yeah,
exactly. And then you
Right.
get the 5th courage. And the 5th courage is the courage we all think is courage, which is physical courage. And so did you do cold water plunging? Did you do Ironman? Did you do what yoga? Did you fast? All these things that we think are the courageous things to do. And then what we do is we only determine our courage based on cold water swimming. But meanwhile, we're not courageous in any other way.
Right.
So if we think about the future of work, it's got really very little to do with the work itself. And if we think about AI, and I do a lot of workshops with organizations around AI, and I often say to them, it's got nothing to do with AI. It's got to do with you being adaptable, what's coming next. And that's what work is for the future. It's not about something. It's about a process and a system your brain has to unlearn, to relearn, to be able to adapt and be courageous in a space that brings about a new type of hope. And when you wake up with a new type of hope, because that's how you've wired your brain, everything's exciting. Nothing's daunting, even though it's hard, because you still need the courage. But the trick is to get the system, the brain power, to be switched on to courage and hope. And then everything else looks after itself. You don't have to you have to study AI, you have to study block. No, that's irrelevant. It's actually irrelevant. You will find what it is that you will add value in and make a lot of money, because it's what's linked to your genius, and your genius is unique, which means that nobody else is doing it like you are, which means that people are coming from far and wide and all the way from LA or California are interviewing me from Cape Town. Why? Only because of my uniqueness. It's only because of that. It's like, I haven't been to Harvard. I haven't worked at McKinsey's. All those things are not, I constantly tell the lectures that I give at universities, I've never been to university. But what I have done is accessed my genius, and I've accessed my fascination. And that's led me to now be speaking to you as an example.
How did you, I'm sorry, Melissa, I'm just dying for this question to be answered. How did you find your genius, or how did your genius find you?
So I think what we've got to also realize is that the idea of the law of attraction has actually been taught to us wrong. And I'll tell you why. It's nothing to chase. It's nothing to move towards. It's nothing to vibrate towards. It's about releasing what's keeping you stuck from already accessing what's already yours.
Yeah.
It's a negative approach. It's not a proactive. It's a I don't even know what the opposite of, because the opposite of proactive is reactive. It's not even reactive. It's reverse active. It's like, it's almost have to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Okay? It's like it's the unlearned. It's the unlearned, right? It's the letting go kind of.
It's almost like everything's available for you. You are stopping the things coming from you, right?
That's exactly right.
And so everybody's got their pocket of genius.
Yes.
Everybody's got it. But what's happened to us is we get into our own way of emotional stress or lack of self-worth, or not thinking that that's available for you for some odd reason. And so we determine our reality by the stories we've told ourselves of what we're worth of getting. And I think the way I accessed it was not even knowing that I was going to access it. It was never the mission. The mission was, how do I just live a more heart-led life? Like, why is it, do I get triggered by this? And why is it that my relationship didn't work? And why is it that I eat too much sugar? And why is it that I smoke weed? And why am I doing these things that I don't really want to be doing, actually? Like, but I'm still doing them. I mean, somehow like in a robotic process, which is what most of the world does. You know, like half the people are addicted, like Dr. Joe says, half the people in the world are addicted to lives they don't even like. And so like we're stuck in this loop, and we have to get out of our own way. So I think the way I did it was not even trying to do it. My process was just healing myself. And all of a sudden I was like, hang on, I'm seeing things that I never saw before. People are asking me to tell them things that I think are normal, but they're not normal to them. And it was quite a shock and surprise when I initially started speaking, because people were like, wow, we never thought of it like that. I'm like, what do you mean? It's so like obvious. Like, what do you mean you don't see it like that? That's so like ABCD, like so simple. They're like, not simple to us. I was like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
People aren't seeing things like I'm seeing them. Okay, well then I've got a career.
Well, it seems like that unraveling of yourself, the kind of unveiling of yourself is just to sit with yourself and be okay with whatever comes up, right? And it
Well, I don't know if it's as easy as that, Mariel. I mean, I think it would lovely to be as easy as that, but I think it's also, it's about realizing that you have to do as much subconscious repatterning as quickly as possible.
yeah.
Because 90% of our personality sits in this dark void that we don't have access to because we are addicted to a high beta brainwave. We are so stuck in this logical 5D, five senses, 3D world that we don't have an altered version of ourselves. And what meditation, breathwork, mushrooms, ayahuasca, all these alter your state. And in this altered state, you get an objective view of your life for the very first time.
Yeah.
And that's the trick, is that you can't just sit there with the things because that's torture. It's about sitting there and altering your state, learning from that altered state, coming back to the state, bit by bit, chiseling it away, as you know.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Got it.
You said something earlier about breaking out of the system. And I think that's such an important topic for us to latch onto for a moment, if we can, because I have a son who's at university and he's home now for the summer. And one of the things that I've been working so fastidiously on is trying to get him trying to break him out of a system. He's learning amazing things at school. His major is neuroscience and he loves it. But I keep saying to him, where does your passion lie? And I notice that his joy, that sparkle in his eye, that beautiful smile he has, really emerges when he's playing music. And so I've said to him, are you in university to please the status quo? Because he knows that his dad and I are happy with whatever he does. I said, so are you trying to please? Because I don't want you locked into a system. Well, over the summer, he bought I'm not sure what they're called, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by naming some kind of converter thing where he makes music. I don't know what he's doing. So he's been producing music. And by hook and crook, we discovered that my husband has some clients that are in the music industry. So now my son has been meeting with these major music producers. One, by luck of family, by luck of connection, one of them was the bass player for Steppenwolf, which is so cool to me. But he's meeting with this guy from Steppenwolf and meeting with the guy who produced all of Michael Jackson's Thriller. And I have seen an incredible shift in my son. There's this freedom so when you're talking about breaking out of the system, I think in his mind, he had to maintain this GPA so that he could get that job, so he could get the brick and mortar, have the white picket fence, the wife and two dogs and all that. And I kept saying to him, follow my logic here, because it sounds abrupt when I say it. You are worth more as a head on a bed in the system than you are up and around thinking for yourself. A head on a bed is kind of the mentality for keeping our prisoners imprisoned. A head on a bed is our mentality for keeping our sick in the hospital. So when we don't give people the freedom to break away from that system of I'm just following the routine, I'm following the path to the poppy fields, then they don't know how to think for themselves. And I love this idea of giving yourself permission and those you love permission to break away from that.
You know, well done. I mean, being a neuro, understanding the brain is wonderful already. And the fact that he's moving over into this music and your husband and them giving that freedom to do so is just beautiful. So I think your whole story is beautiful. But I think let's remember that for the last hundreds of years, if not longer, society has celebrated conforming to the system.
That's right.
And so everything's about conforming, and religion was about conforming. And
yes.
Work was about conforming. Marriage was about conforming. Having those kids, everything was about conforming. And the better you conform, the happier you were supposed to be, and the more you'd be celebrated. But the internet has changed everything because everything's dispersed and information is dispersed now. So all of a sudden, we're waking up to the fact that, hang on, there's other ways of doing things. And I think you've also got to allow them to go down certain paths to figure it out.
Yeah.
But no doubt, these new generations of people coming up are running an iOS 20. we're running very lower operating systems, and they got much higher operating systems. And I think they figure it out themselves. They have to do less emotional work than we had to. And so, yes, he'll figure it out themselves. And I think what you're explaining here is the real last, like, strongholds of education that we are having on our systems.
Yes.
If you think about 5 and 10-year-olds, there's no way they're going to be going through that when they're going into their adult lives. There's just no way. Soon enough, all of us will have a very, very, I mean, I was doing this piece for a business, and let me just explain it to you and explain to you what's going to happen is we were part of an experience economy. We wanted to be all having amazing experiences. So we wanted all our 5 senses ticked, and we wanted to tell all our friends about the amazing experience we had. That's why every shop now has its own unique smell. All these things, they're not old, they're newish. They're like maybe 5 or 6 years old, and now everybody's doing it. So now we're bored of experiences, and now we're going to start moving towards transformative economies. In other words, you want to go into a business and actually transform by the time you leave. You don't want to have an experience. You want to transform as a human being. And so if you have a CrossFit or Burning Man, or even a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, is you arrive as X and you leave as Y. And so those brands are blown up. And the new economy is called the economy of intimacy. And the intimacy economy is about all of us over the next couple of years starting to have a very, very dear, close confidant that's going to be AI driven. And so what's going to happen is that this AI will start to become so intimate with you, nobody will know you better. Not one person. And in fact, this AI will start to make suggestions to you because it knows you so well, and says, Mariel, I know you like this yogurt over here at this place, but you know what? There's one over here that, and what starts to happen is that the intimacy of this relationship will start to direct your decisions, which is quite scary and also quite exciting in some ways.
Yep.
And so we've also got to realize that over the next few years, this AI system is going to become so integrated into our lives that education will be a pointless exercise, because you'll have access to everything from critical thinking to every medical to every travel. Like, everything will be sorted for you from this one character that you'll have on your phone with you. And so I do think that we're in for a shock. So like I said, I think your son is one of the last people going through these discussions that we're having. I don't think it's going to be a thing over the next 5 years or so.
Wow. So wow. So it's really about just, now, would you say, we got to wrap up because we're running out of time, but John, which means you have to come back again.
Always, but keeping you on a loop.
But what I want to ask is, so then kind of the only thing that we have to do, in quotes, is really kind of embrace the AI. Is that what you're saying? In a sense, like, embrace the suggestions? Right? Or what?
Okay. So look, I think the question itself is also coming from a level of awareness that is not clear of what's next. And Mariel, you're not alone. Nobody's clear about what's next. And so what we've got to realize is that I think the same daunting idea was around when tractors, steam engines, and electricity arrived.
Exactly.
Do we stop? How do we engage? We can't engage. It's the enemy. It's taking our work away from us.
That's right.
And so I think it's today it's AI. Tomorrow it's aliens. And the next day we have no idea. We will start to engage with different types of consciousness, because AI is also a type of consciousness. It's maybe not the one we imagine with a heart and a brain and a nervous system, but it's got a consciousness of some sorts.
Right.
And then what we're going to start to have is consciousness with interactions with other beings, because you can see what CNN and the Pentagon and the Israeli army and everybody's setting us up for becoming okay with engagement with another civilization. Right. So when you say, 100%. Should we embrace AI? The question is we have no idea what else is coming. So it's not about embracing AI. It's about how quickly can you change your awareness so that you can see solutions that you do not have available to you at the moment within a foe. In this current form, It's a foe
Right.
because it's replacing our current brain power. And so right now it's an enemy. But if you don't change your awareness, it'll continue to stay an enemy. And if you change your awareness, it then can become something you can embrace with and work with.
Right.
So there's a
Right.
preempt to embracing it.
Wow. Wow. It's amazing. I'm actually excited. Every time we have a conversation with you, I leave excited and completely confused in a good way. But I think that's ultimately, I think that's the spiritual journey too, is kind of this sense of,
So
I don't know what I
said.
don't know, and not knowing is okay, right? Sometimes not knowing is a brilliant place to be. Because when you look at a baby, and I have a new granddaughter, I look at her and I think it's so beautiful because she's in this not knowing. I mean, she's a newborn. She doesn't know anything, and yet she is so full of knowledge and everything, right? At the same time. So anyway, that got
So
a little
Mariel, I think you make perfect sense. But I also think when you say you feel excited but confused, is that your brain, I'm not giving you something to anchor yourself into the future. So
Right.
your brain is going, I'm confused because I don't have this anchor.
Yeah, I'm
excited with
used
the
to holding on to
potential.
something. Yeah, right.
Exactly. So you're actually not confused. What you are is changing the way you determine what you're going to do next. Because
Yeah,
remember, we're so programmed to do what's next based on an outcome where we now don't have the luxury of an outcome. What we have is an even bigger luxury, which is a process of activating our creativity and being
right.
lost in the moment of our creativity where time is irrelevant.
Yeah,
And the outcome
absolutely.
always takes care of itself, you know? So it's a very different currency, and it's a very
Right.
different skill. It's a very different creativity that we'll have to start to practice. And I'm not even 100% clear about it, but what I do know is that the old way is not working anymore. You know,
No, it
I'm also
isn't.
unclear
No, it's
of it.
not.
It really
Right.
isn't. John,
Yeah.
I want to talk more. I want to keep going, but we can't. So we're gonna wrap it up. But you are gonna come back because that's just how
Yes.
it is.
It was
You know,
non-negotiable.
it's a
Yes.
It's
once a month thing.
non-negotiable.
I love these
Non-negotiable.
chats. It's
I
wonderful. I'm
love
so
them.
happy that
They're so great, and they'll lead to more things. John, we love you so much. Please come back,
Thank you so much. I
and you
will.
will. So thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much, Melissa and Mariel. Well, have a
Next,
wonderful day.
you
Thank you,
too.
John.
Lots
You
of
too.
love.
Stay
Thank
cool.
you so much. Bye.
Ciao. Bye.
You're listening to Outcomes of Sun Radio. This is Melissa Yamaguchi here to share with you a tip on feng shui. Well, Mariel and I in our intro were talking about summer. So I have some really good tips for you on how to captivate the energy of summer and bringing that into your home. So one of the things that we do when we're working on the balance of the home for summer is to create that balance by bringing in, believe it or not, the color red. Because June, July, and August represent the summer months, and the summer months are represented by the element of fire. And fire most dominantly is known by the color red. Also, it's kind of a tomato orangey red, a blue red, but also a bright fuchsia or purple. I oftentimes will bring samples of something red to show people what they can put in their home to captivate that energy. So red put it in your more dominant rooms. So for yin and yang, you're going to want to bring just a little bit of red into a room which is very active. Now, you're not going to want to put it into the bedroom. If you like it, you can, but if you need to shake up the color, bring it into a dominant, like a big loud family room where you play music. And if you don't care for the color red, bring in, there's different ways to incorporate it. There's red, either the orange red, blue red, fuchsia, or purple flowers, or a vase, or even a book of one of your favorite books with a cover on it or something. The next thing to do is to think about decorating your garden. If you are fortunate enough to have a yard or even a balcony that you have brought on plants and you bring it into you can make it your own little garden, then decorate it. Bring things out into it that give you something to look at beyond the plants. So you want to be able to create that sight line that goes to a beautiful little table in the corner, or a little seating area, or a bench, or maybe a beautiful little water fountain, anything, but decorate the garden, your plant area, and make sure that your plants stay healthy. Another trick of the trade in feng shui is to introduce sunflowers into your home. Now, sunflowers represent happiness. And one of the things that's so great about sunflowers is, if you think about the title of our show, it's Out Comes the Sun. Well, sunflowers follow the sun. So if you watch them in a field, they will be facing the sun as it rises, and then throughout the day follow it on a time lapse photography into the sunset. So sunflowers are a really great capture of summer. So bring that into your environment. Water features, most certainly. We always have fountains if we can to keep that running water as a really soothing and summer-esque energy. And also water can calm down when it's too hot because water nullifies and pacifies too much fire. Makes sense, right? And then the last thing we do is we put wind chimes by your door so that as you're entering and exiting and you've got kids running in and out of the house in the summer, those wind chimes are really a way of stirring up and keeping that joyful energy moving. Also, wind chimes represent metal energy. So in feng shui, fire calms down the metal. Think about putting something in there like you're welding, and you would put fire to it before you hammered it into the shape you wanted. So fire kind of controls that metal, and the water controls the fire. So by bringing in those elements of the water fountain, a little bit of the wind chime, bringing in the color red or the fire colors, you've really kind of brought in a balance of energy. And then the sunflowers are just happiness, a little bit of earth energy, but certainly represent the sun. That's it for today for my feng shui tips. Stick around. Up next, Mariel Hemingway to share with you about health and balance.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio. I am Mariel Hemingway, and I have a balance tip for you today. I'm going to talk, because we're talking about summer, I'm going to talk about eating seasonally, but summer, so I'm kind of eating colorfully, because you brought up, Melissa, you brought up the idea of the color of red, and that being the color of fire and all of that. So it's very interesting when you eat the colors, kind of the colors of the rainbow, it's very good for your health. There's something very balancing about that. And, orange and yellow provide a certain, beta carotene and all these different things. They're really good they're good cancer blocking food. So peppers and tomatoes and things of the summer, watermelon and things like that have red in them. But when you go to eat, and when you eat or you dine out, have different colors on your plate. Have the green, have the red, have the yellow. Having that, it's not like you have to order colors, but there's something about creating a salad. And if you like me, or do most of your making food at home, like Melissa and I do, it's just, you can create such gorgeous salads in the summertime that are filled with seasonal vegetables that you grew in your own garden or got at a farmer's market that are locally grown, carrots and tomatoes and radishes and all these different beautiful rich colors that really adds to your diet. Because if you really think about it, we're really energetic beings. Melissa talks about energy. Feng Shui is about energy. It really is. And the energy of the colors going into your system, that resonates in the body. I'm not a doctor. No, I am not. And we talk to a lot of great experts who have PhDs and or MDs and all these different things. But I can tell you that I know the benefit of eating seasonally and eating colorfully. When you're, just think about it. You go into you go into the school that in the school year, when I was growing up, and the bland colors of the food that you got at the lunch counter it was awful. It was all gray, it was brown, it was mashed potato, it was white, brown, and gray. It was nasty. It was like, and they didn't look like real food, because I don't think they really were real food. So there was something, and my mother, I was fortunate enough. Thank you. Thank you to myself for figuring that out. To have a mother that made me a beautiful lunch that was colorful. I don't think she intended it, but we always ate seasonally in our home. And it's just, you'll find that when you start to do it, there's this internal energy and glow that happens to you. I just know that my salads are so vibrant this time of year. And then of course you can put a nice sunflower, which I actually have one. I should probably show everybody. See,
Ta-da!
ta-da! A little bouquet on my counter there. And it, I don't know about you, but creating the environment where I have my food, creating it to be beautiful is as much a part of the food that you're eating as that energy it just goes everywhere. I'm sort of really, I often piggyback on your ideas. So I really am piggybacking on not only your ideas, but your expertise in the whole feng shui energy thing, because I really believe that food is just such an important part, but how we place it, how we take time for it. The great thing is, being a mother of two grown-up daughters, I see them preparing food, and I see that it wasn't lost on them, because they're better at it than I thought I was pretty good at it. They're exquisite. I mean, they're incredibly detail oriented, and their food always looks quite beautiful. So, go into your kitchen with the sense of, I'm an artist. This is not just me creating a meal and, oh dear, what am I going to do? But I'm an artist, and I need to create something extraordinary and beautiful. So that's my tip for the day.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're talking about the ambiance is so huge. I know that, you go into a restaurant, and part of the judge we have outside of the food being good quality is what's the ambiance of the place. Well, we take the time to bring that into our own homes. When I have a rose garden, which I've shared with you, many of my roses, there's this brilliant, beautiful fuchsia pink. And then I will put one in a vase with a little, maybe a candle going when I've made my food and I'm eating, and I've got that right in front of me.
Yes.
I'm sitting down with a family member, and they always think it's a little touch, but it shifts the energy. It's so and it allows you to digest the food that you're talking about much better when you've got you've taken that time to invest in your environment. I love it.
Yeah, it's so good. Oh my gosh, what a great show we had today. What an amazing guest. What an amazing guest. I love John. He's always going to come back, because we've now, I don't know, I think we've wrangled him. It's
we put sticky glue on him. He's like, it's all sticky. He can't walk away.
Yeah, he can't. It's like, I'm trying to get rid of them, but I can't. Yeah, they've had me now 3 times. Don't you think it's enough?
Does this ever end? No, John, it doesn't. I'm going to have to use my Rod Serling voice.
As long as the world is changing, we have to agree. We have to not be afraid that we might be speaking to aliens. I don't know.
No, I love, you're right. As long as the world is changing, there's always going to be a place for John Sanei. How great is that to have yourself a position in life? Yeah, it's changing. So smart. So incredibly smart.
So smart. Well, thank you, everyone. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio. And thank you to our amazing executive producer, Slater Smith. He's so wonderful. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. It is Out Comes the Sun Radio with Melissa Yamaguchi and Mariel Hemingway. And you know what? Just keep coming back, because we love you so much. We love people listening to us. We love learning with you about the world and how it's changing, and how we're all going to be okay with changing with it.